Clayton's, I know, jumping on, so he said start.
Okay. All right. So it's 6:02. This is Mark Tucker. I'm the superintendent. The reason that I'm talking now is because the Danville School Board does not have a board chair yet. So this is the annual reorganization meeting. So I will call the meeting to order at 6:02 p.m. And for the record, we have 5 board members in attendance: Clayton Cargill, Molly Gleason, Tim Sanborn, Melissa Conley, and David Toll. And before we get started, I just wanted, for the benefit of the people who are here, explain that we're in a different format tonight. And the reason that we're in a different format is we're trying out the webinar format of Zoom because it's a more secure environment. And the reason that we were doing that is because we had a horrible, hellacious Zoom bomb at the Cabot annual meeting on Monday night that we don't ever want to have happen again. So we have more control and more security in the webinar format. The way that this works is the people, the board members and administration, et cetera, who normally, my screen just shut off. Can you can still hear me?
We can see you.
Oh, okay, Kim. All right. So the board members and administrators who have a normal role in the meeting get identified or assigned as panelists, and other people come in as attendees. We will still be supporting public comment when it's appropriate, and that will be handled on a person-by-person basis. Dave Schelling will be joining the meeting, and he's got a method for handling public comment when people want to sign up to speak. We are test driving this tonight, so we might have a couple bumps along the way, but I'm thinking that this is going to, when we're doing remote connections for meetings, that this is probably going to be the method going forward. So with all of that said, the first order of business tonight is for the board to elect a chair. So I will open the floor to nominations.
I'd like to make a nomination. This is Dave. I'd like to make a nomination. I'd like to nominate Clayton for board chair.
Okay. Dave Toll nominates Clayton, and Tim Sanborn seconds the nomination. Clayton, did you want to say something before we?
I had additions to the agenda, and I wanted to ask you to take a roll call of the student reps.
Oh, okay. So I apologize. So we also have 2 student reps on tonight. We have Thomas Edgar and Ava Marshy, who are in attendance at the meeting. I apologize to our 2 students. And you had an addition to the agenda?
We talked about this earlier briefly. One of my additions to the agenda was future agenda items, which is not on the agenda. And
okay.
So my addition to the agenda, we talked about this earlier. Normally, number 2 on the agenda is you call the meeting to order, and then number 2 is additions to the agenda.
Yeah.
And we changed that, and then, but this is from last year's list. So I just wanted to add future agenda items, which is not on there, so I can add future agenda items in the future.
Okay.
I have a point of order.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Can we go through with the nomination process, and after that, then the chair can can do this? That way, we're not interrupting the nomination process. You can break in between nominations, but I agree with everything with Clayton saying. But let's just, if we could finish the one on the chair. I don't mean to be rude, but probably the way it should be done.
Okay, I think what Clayton was trying to do was to deal with that as the first agenda item. So anyway, I think, let's have a gentle person's agreement that we're going to add that at the end of future agenda items and move on. That's okay with everybody. Okay, so we have one nomination for board chair, nominated and seconded Clayton Cargill. Are there any other nominations for board chair? Is there any discussion about Clayton as your candidate to be board chair?
You got it.
Okay.
Welcome.
To vote.
Okay, so I will call the vote. All those in favor of Clayton Cargill as the board chair for the Danville School Board, say aye.
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 Do we have any nays?
Aye.
Okay, so for the record,
I'll abstain.
yeah, so for the record, we have 4 ayes and an abstention by Clayton, but that doesn't get you out of it, Clayton. You are the board chair, and I will turn the meeting over to you.
Thanks, everybody, for that. Thank you for the gig. I understand it's real cushy and quiet, no trouble. And I appreciate that. And so now as we go forward with the agenda, and again, this is my first time doing this, so expect bumps and expect for me not to recognize what's happening. The next item on the agenda is to elect a vice chair. It says clerk/vice chair, and in some boards, both the same person. In this particular case, we're going to elect a vice chair and then a clerk. So I'd like to first call for nominations for a vice chair. Does anybody have any nominations for a vice chair? Board members specifically have to do the nominating.
I would nominate Dave Toll if he wants to keep doing it.
I would
I have a
second that.
nomination for Dave Toll, whether he wants to keep doing it or not. Do I have any other nominations for vice chair of the school board? I got a second on Dave Toll to be nominated for the school board. Say it,
Yes.
Melissa. Say it.
I'll second Dave Toll.
Excellent. Is there any discussion? If there's no discussion, I'd like you to vote, please. Can we vote on Dave Toll for the vice chair of the school board? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. So that's 4-0, Dave Toll. Next, I need a clerk. I'm calling for nominations for a clerk. The job of the clerk is the hardworking one, the minutes taker. And I've spoken quite a bit to Robert about he's willing to help somebody get going on the minutes, and we have to figure out how we're going to get them posted, because he said the Danville School Board page that he's been maintaining is pretty arcane, and he would like for it to go to a different page and maybe a different format. But the main thing is his minutes are very high quality, and we like to keep his minutes available. We like to keep the video available, but I'm looking for someone who's a clerk that would be willing to work with Dave, with Robert Egger, to sort of figure out how to get this going. And in the beginning, like I talked about, I can help anybody with the minutes. I've done them a few times on a few boards. So, but right now I'm seeing if anybody is willing to be the clerk. I'm seeking nominations for the clerk of the school board.
I'd like to nominate Molly Gleason.
I'll
I have a
second
nomination
that.
for Molly Gleason. Okay, Tim
Oh my
Sanborn, second.
God. Yeah.
All right. Do I have any other nominations for clerk of the school board? All right, okay, all right, Molly, you can do it. Okay. If there's no discussion, no other nominations, I'd like to call for a vote on this. Can I get a yes if you want Molly to be the clerk of the school board?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, and we,
Yes.
did we lose Dave?
Dave is a yes.
Okay, excellent. And I would also vote yes.
So Clayton, if I could interject here,
Yes, sir, please.
in terms of doing something with the content of the existing Danville School Board website, we can put resources on that. I'll get Scott to help with that.
Yeah,
We can have a conversation offline about that, about how to move it over, and he'll probably want to bring it underneath the Danville School website, but we can talk about that offline. I just wanted to let you know that we'll put resources on it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I really do think that they get viewed and read quite often by people in the community and pointed to. During the selection cycle, they were pointed to a great many times as well.
Yeah.
Tim.
I guess while we're talking about commitment of resources, when I first started on the board, while we had a clerk who had had a lot to do, we also had a designated person who was not on the board who came to every meeting and did the minutes. And I know that other boards have that. And I know how labor intensive and how time consuming those minutes are. And I didn't know if that's a thing within other boards within our district or
Yeah, let me, I can address that if you want. Clayton.
Yes, sir.
So we don't have, we've never had success finding somebody that would do that. Commit to coming to every meeting. What we've been doing since we've been in an electronic environment, or because we have recording capabilities, is we record the meetings, whether it's Zoom or by some other means, and send it off to be transcribed. Somebody that works in the finance office remotely down in Florida transcribes minutes for all the other boards. And then they're sent back, and I look at them to see if there's any like misunderstandings or miswordings or things like that before they get sent back to the board. So, Clayton and I had a very initial conversation about transitioning the minute process. What Robert did was appreciated, but very unique in my experience to do that, put in that kind of work. So we have to figure out how to make this manageable. Yeah,
I agree. I agree, manageable, but an asset to the board as opposed to a chore.
yeah, right.
So I think we're all on the same page there, and I will move on with the agenda. I need to elect 2 CCSU board representatives. And Molly and Melissa, as you know, you both attended a CCSU board meeting in February. That is a board where we discuss policy and where mandatory policies come down from the VSBA. And we actually need 2 board members and an alternate specifically to that board. The alternate position is pretty vestigial from the old days to make sure that every board is properly represented. And I would like to sit on that board. I'm on that board now. I'm the clerk of that board, and I'd like to continue. And I'm looking for 2 other people that are willing to commit that time to that meeting. And it's bi-monthly on the 3rd Monday, starts at 5:30. So I'm looking for 1 nomination. I'm willing to do it as well. I'd like to be nominated for that. And then I'm going to look for an alternate too. So we'll start with, I'm looking for a nomination for someone to sit on the CCSU board. And it can be me to start. You can warm up by nominating me.
I'll nominate Clayton.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah.
I'll second it. Dave will second.
Dave second. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're welcome.
I'll call for a vote on that, please, since there's a lot more of those to do.
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. All in favor, say aye. And
Aye.
I'll vote for myself for that one because that's a great job. And
Dave,
it's such a great job. We're looking for another one. Dave Toll has served on that board for a number of years. For the past 2 years, he's been an alternate. And I don't know if his schedule necessarily allows for him to do it or if he wants to do it. So I'm going to ask him those questions before I seek any additional nominations.
I did it for quite a few years, and my work schedule can be touching. I'd like somebody else to have the honor of sitting on the board.
So what I thought was, because there's so much policy discussed, that this would be an excellent opportunity for our 2 newest members to come on as alternate and member, and then sit there and listen to the policy and contribute to the policy discussions at that level, because it's a level of training that you can't, discussing policy is something that you can't do unless you discuss policy. You really can't get experience doing it unless you sit there and listen to various quibbles. So with that said, I'm seeking another nomination first for the member, not the alternate.
I'll nominate Melissa.
Melissa Conley. I've got a nomination for Melissa Conley as the CCSU board representative.
I am excited to second that nomination.
Second. I assume there's no additional discussion, and I'll call for a vote on Melissa Conley as a CCSU representative. I'll vote yes, even though it's out of order, to get it going.
Yes.
Dave, yes.
That's 4-0. Okay, now for the womp womp sound and the bad news, the alternate has to come to every meeting. Those are the rules of the CCSU board. You didn't get out of anything. I'm looking for another nomination for an alternate to the CCSU board.
It sounds like we're nominating Molly.
I'll second that.
With no additional discussion, I'll call for a vote, please.
Dave, yes.
All in favor of nominating Molly Gleason as the alternate to the CCSU board?
Aye.
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 I will vote for that as well. Lovely. Thank you, ladies. On the next, we have committee assignments, and we're gonna nominate committee assignments for the negotiation council. Now, about the negotiation council, we negotiate with the teachers union in small groups for the salary with small groups of the teachers, and those negotiations and the support staff, and those negotiations are currently in session. In December, we renamed a community member, Jenny Lavely, to the board. So she sits on the council. So she sits on that council. Bruce Malini was on that negotiations council. I have also been on that negotiations council and would care to continue. And so we really only need me on there. And somebody's gonna have to lump me right now. I'm looking for
Nominate.
nomination to the negotiations council.
This is Dave, and I'm going to recuse myself.
Yes, sir. Dave Toll recuses himself. Dave Toll has a conflict. Tim Sanborn has a conflict because he's in the teachers union. And
I'll nominate Clayton for that role.
thank you, Melissa. I'm looking for a second on that.
I'll second it.
Take it. With no additional discussion, I'll call for a vote on that one and we can get that one done. All in favor of me on the negotiation council, say aye.
Aye.
I
Thank you very much. Okay, so that's that one done. Next, we're going to set the regular board meeting schedule. And this is pretty well set in stone at this point with Mark attending all the meetings. The day that works for Mark is going to be, and this is the day that has classically worked for Danville, every first Tuesday at 6 p.m. And if we get back to more traditional in-person meetings, there will probably still be a Zoom component because it's so effective to get more people involved. But for now, it's Tuesdays, the first Tuesday of every month at 6 p.m. If that's okay with everybody, I'd like to get a motion to agree to that.
I'll make a motion to continue with the first Tuesday, 6 o'clock.
Thank you, Dave. Can I get a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay. And if there's no additional discussion, I'll call for a vote on that.
Aye.
Aye.
I'll vote for that as well. The next item on the agenda is to set.
Clayton, can I ask a question?
Papa?
Clayton,
Yeah.
so that would be March, we would have a meeting on March 8th, or would we be starting in April?
What would be March 1st?
Well, I think
if
this
it
is the
was-
March meeting, Clayton.
Oh, this is
I think-
the March meeting, excuse me.
Yeah.
So so March 1st was the first meeting, and this is a special meeting because we didn't have a meeting on March the 1st. So in the event that we have a meeting that is not on the first Tuesday of every month, it's called a special meeting. And it's just identified as such. We have to schedule it differently and warn it differently, and there's just only slightly different rules. But our regularly scheduled meeting is always on the first Tuesday of every month at 6.
Right, that's
No,
permanently
I
on
think-
the schedule.
Right, so I think the question is the next regularly scheduled.
The next
meeting
regularly
is
scheduled board
April.
meeting is whatever the first Tuesday of April is. And you can tell your phone, I tell my phone to tell me the first Tuesday, and that's how I know it. Let me see what this thing says. I've got a calendar in here somewhere. So the first Tuesday of April is the 5th. April the 5th at 6 o'clock is the next meeting of the regularly scheduled meeting of the Danville School Board. And we'll discuss that in a few minutes. Okay, the next item on the agenda is to schedule an annual board retreat. I've been on this board for 3 years. I've never had a board retreat. I hear them talked about. I'm gonna go to some other meetings and try to figure out if they schedule board retreats and see what they mean when they say it after that. For the time being, I'd like to, if we can get a consensus on this, I'd like to table it.
Sounds
So-
great.
I'm good.
So we're gonna table that one with general consensus, if that's okay. Dave Toll, is that okay with you?
Good.
Okay, next, we're gonna designate official newspapers and posting stations. Traditionally, our official newspaper is the Caledonian Record, where we post our warnings for our meetings. And our meetings have, and our posting locations, actually, it's Town Hall, the school, Marty's, and the Hastings store, where we traditionally post the agendas of the meetings with the descriptions of the potential actions and discussions so that people will know where they are. And I think it goes on the school website as well. So I would like a motion, please, to get all of those, the Caledonian Record as the newspaper and those 4 posting locations plus the school website as posting locations for our official agenda posting.
So moved.
Thank you, sir.
I
Can
will
get a
second.
Thank you, Dave. And I can't imagine there's discussion, and I'd like to call for a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
I
One more.
No.
Got him? I'm also a yes. Okay, moving on. To everybody listening, bear with me here. I'm doing my best. We're going to discuss and adopt the code of ethics now. And this is something, this is a piece of paper that you have to sign. And I think there's actually a second piece of paper that we signed last year that we probably have to re-sign again, that came in real late, that we'll probably put on our future agenda items, but you'll probably have to, Mark, I'm gonna take a time out here, Mark. Remember that one about that we just discussed at the last
Yeah,
meeting?
the
about
conflict of interest,
the
that's,
procurement one? So that's not
Yeah,
on
so
our
we
agenda for
should-
the night, but that probably will come in the packet that you sign when you go to the CCSU office.
yeah, we'll get that to Melissa and Molly for them to sign. And that's in effect through this school year, and then we'll take it up again in I don't know,
Around the
maybe
first of the
July
year,
1st,
or
or
at
we'll
the
do it in
beginning,
the
okay.
fall. Yeah.
So that'll come up later. That's another item you have to sign.
Did Katie send you the code of ethics document? She's emailed
Yeah.
those out. Okay.
Yeah.
So read it over. If Molly or Melissa, if you have any questions or you want to talk about it, I'm happy to discuss it with you and explain it with you. If you don't have any questions, you can sign it and return it to Katie. She keeps.
So
it.
our agenda says to discuss and adopt it. So I don't have it in
Okay.
front of me to read. Does somebody want to read that out for me? To count as discussion? Unless it's a whole page. Unless we can share the screen. Somebody can share their screen.
I don't have it handy.
Yeah, I'd have to
I have
forward
it
it.
up. Let me just see what I can do with it. Hold on one second.
This is a good test for all of us hosting and see who all can just share their screen.
All right, let me see if I can. I have it up. I'm gonna try to get, hold on one second, give me a minute. Okay,
So give me a chance to sneaky take attendance.
all right, let me see here. Share screen. Oh, I think, Mark, are you the host?
Yeah. One second.
Disabled, so I think if I can, I should be able to do
Yeah,
it.
no, I can. You should be able to share it now.
Okay, let me go back.
Which Melissa that is.
All right, well, this is the one that she sent me. Oh, which one?
Yep, that's it.
You guys got it? Okay.
Yep.
So we can do a silent read, I guess. Doesn't
Okay.
seem like something we need to read out loud for everybody.
All right, and I'll just scroll at some point for you. Just let me know.
I think some of the main parts are that when you're an individual person, you are not the school board. And so you don't go around enforcing the rules. You don't go around saying, I am the rules. And you don't bully anybody about how you're a board member. I mean, I think that's the main thing. You don't use it to your advantage. You maintain the highest ethical standards. And you sign this paper, and then that's good. And so, like I say, when you bring it in, you can ask Mark if you have any questions. That's my phone. Sorry, folks. My wife's on call, so my phone sometimes rings.
Oh, it's shorter than I thought. Okay. You guys see all that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so can we, as a group, can we adopt this code of ethics for our school board, please, by way of a motion?
And make a motion that we adopt this code of ethics.
I'm looking
I'll
also for a
second.
second. Thank you,
I'll
Melissa.
second.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Melissa. Since we've discussed it, I'll call for a vote.
Aye.
All in favor of adopting this code of ethics?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Sorry, that was long. I should have had that in front of me. I looked at this agenda 50 times today, and I found 5 things I needed to have in front of me, and none of them helped. And that's the one I needed.
You're doing fine, Clayton. Just, so just Molly and Melissa, everybody sign that and return it to Katie at the office, or send it to me and I'll get it to Katie.
So can Katie probably needs to send that to me, to Dave, to Tim and I fresh, so we can sign it anew, because I did not get it.
You did not get it, okay.
So that'd be a thing to send to the 3 of us anew, so that we can sign it and return it as well.
Does it need to be a wet signature or is a digital sign off okay?
Digital, that's fine. You
Perfect.
can sign it and scan it back to us. Is that what you mean by, yeah?
Okay, so the next is communication practices and handling complaints. And so communication practices and handling complaints, I'm gonna just give this to Mark for just a second so we can explain administrative versus operational versus board level complaints.
All right.
And maybe
So-
we can do this a little bit.
Yeah, so the way that I talk about this is, I think it's important for the board to understand that, the different roles, and that things that have to do with the operation of the school are the responsibility of the administration, starting with me and down through the building principals. And then the board's responsibility, I would, kind of summarize primarily as being responsible for policy and for holding the administration accountable for following policies and following, the legal directives and statute, et cetera. What we always prefer in the schools, there will be times when parents will contact you because they're upset about something. I would suggest that your first response after you listen to them empathetically is to ask them, what did Dave or Sarah say, or what did your child's teacher say about this problem? Because what we like to do is have the problem addressed at the level where it occurred. So you will sometimes have a parent say, well, I don't, Mrs. So-and-so, and she's doing this and that, or this thing happened to my daughter in class. And it's like, so what did the teacher say? Sometimes you find out they haven't taken it to the teacher. They saw you at Marty's and they jumped on you, as Bruce used to say all the time, you can't go into Marty's without getting jumped on by somebody. We would ask from the administrator's perspective that you let us deal with operational problems in the school first. And that's not to cut you out or to say you have no role or concern about that. But there are things that come up rarely, but occasionally where, like matters of discipline and things like that with employees or with students, where at some stage of the process, sometimes the board has to get involved because you have a responsibility as a kind of a quasi judicial responsibility. If the administration takes action against an employee and they have appeal rights, and sometimes those appeals can rise up to the level of the school board. And it's always preferential that that you not be involved in that process until the matter comes before you, because you're supposed to be balanced and not have preformed notions about what's going on. So it's just, and I know I'm talking to a couple of parents, so you probably understand that too. And then maybe you've had, questions about things that have happened at school. And I hope that, when that happens, you're starting at the lowest level in the school, so to speak, with the teacher. And if you have to talk to the principal, talk to the principal. Things sometimes come to me, not a lot, but some things sometimes come to me, and my response is always, thank you, I hear you. What did, Dave Schilling say, or what did Sarah say, depending on what the grade level is. And if they said, well, I didn't talk to him, I send him back. I'll push him back down the line, so to speak. So that's really, the other thing about communications is that you will hear things at times. You have to be careful about talking about things that are not in the public record. If we have matters that come before the board in executive session, which we may have something in our next meeting that would fall in that category. Discussions in executive session are not shared outside of the executive session. The board goes into executive session to be able to deliberate in private, and then comes out of executive session and may or may not take actions on the conversation. But in terms of confidentiality, we don't talk about the specific, the specifics of what was discussed in executive session. Any action has to be taken in public, so that's a difference there. And then we're always concerned about confidentiality with students and things like that. But those are kind of the big things.
Thank you, Mark. And coming back, communication practices. Traditionally, the board chair is the spokesman for the board. So if they're seeking, if the newspaper is seeking a statement, then they're traditionally going to Bruce, and you've been told not to. If they come to you, direct them to Bruce. But now there's no Bruce, And so now I guess you'll direct them to me, but they don't spell my name right. So I guess that's okay.
We'll work on that.
So direct them to me and
We'll
we'll try to ask them to please spell my name right. It seems like the least they could do.
Right.
Going forward, appointment of the vote, the next agenda item is appointment of the voting delegate for the statewide health insurance. I went to a webinar about reorganizing. They said this year we don't need an appointment for statewide health insurance because that matter is closed for the year. So we're gonna skip that one. And if I'm wrong, name it next month.
No, I think you're right.
That was, that was like a week ago, I went to that. And then the last of the things that we have to do here is this, we need to, I'm seeking nominations for signers of warrants. And a signer of warrant is a board member who goes to the CCSU office and reviews the checks that get signed by the treasurer before the treasurer signs them to make sure that all of the spending makes sense after the payroll people get the payroll done, and after the accounts payable people get the accounts payable done, and make sure that large purchases have been approved by the board over a certain amount, and make sure that small purchases make sense. A lot of it is signing off right now. This is signing off on basketball referees, small things, notepads, all kind of school supplies the teachers request. And so some of it's minutia, a lot of it's all of it's important because none of it's your money. It's all the town's money. I currently do this job. I'm happy to continue doing this job. It's going to take an alternate as well. The alternate, I can show you what we're doing. With the payroll, you can also, if you look, this job has benefited me. When the payroll comes in and the time cards come in, I can look at the time cards and see how the time cards mesh with the contracts. And I find that useful in negotiations because there are some little tiny parts of the contract where people can get escalators for various things, and you have to make sure they line up. So I'm happy to be nominated as the signer of warrants, but I'm going to need a second signer of warrants to back up if I'm not available. And I'm happy to show somebody how to do that. And you have to be available anytime from Tuesday at 4 when Tina sends you an email to Thursday at some point, Thursday morning. But you got to tell her when you're coming. That's Tina. So it's an in the day job.
I'll nominate Clayton.
I'll second.
I'll do it. Okay, that's a second. No further discussion. I'll call for a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
And I need somebody who's willing to come in and understand how to do it in case I can't. So I'm looking for a nomination for somebody who is not busy, let's say most days at 3.
And is there somebody who works in town and can do that?
Somebody who works in town and can do that, or somebody who lives on Kittredge Road, anybody like that. Anybody, if you live on Kittredge Road, you're probably right in my wheelhouse here. So I'm looking for a nomination. If anybody can think of anybody that lives on Kittredge Road, I'll have that person nominated.
I'll nominate whoever lives on Kittredge Road.
I'll take Melissa's nomination from Molly Gleason. I'm looking for a
That's
second.
the one. Second.
I'll take a second from Dave, and hearing no additional discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of Molly Gleason as a second signer of warrants, say aye.
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 I also vote for Molly. Awesome. We're through that. Okay. I told you guys a lot of motions, a lot of whatever. It was way weirder for me. I'm feeling pretty awkward over here.
You're doing
so
great,
the next-
Clayton.
You're doing
Hang in
great.
there, bud.
The next item
Hang in
on the
there.
agenda is the approval of minutes. And so there's 2 sets of minutes that we have to approve. The first one is February 1st, which was our regular meeting of the Danville School Board. And Robert sent the minutes, and I reviewed the minutes generally. I can no longer say I reviewed the minutes. I have to sit here and wait for one of you guys to have read through the minutes and say that they're okay. So everybody have a chance to go through the February 1st minutes.
I have.
Can I have a motion to approve the February 1st minutes if you didn't see anything wrong?
I motion
Corrections.
to approve
Tim
those.
motions. Can I get a second?
Second.
Dave seconds. All in favor of approving the February 1st minutes? Say aye.
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 Aye as well. That's 5-0. Okay. February 3rd minutes was the Meet the Candidates meeting that we had. And it's basically the minutes themselves are a transcription of what you said on the first night that you showed up and said, I'm a candidate for the meeting. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes of February the 3rd.
Dave will make a motion.
Dave Toll. Give it a second.
I'll
Tim
second.
Sanborn. With no discussion, I'll call for a vote on accepting the minutes of February the 3rd. All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
I'll also say yes. Thank you very much.
Are we supposed to support that if we weren't there and weren't members at the time, or does that not
You
matter?
can't. Yeah, the two new members actually can't vote on that.
Can't vote? Oh, so I'm gonna
No.
go back. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna have you abstain. I guess I gotta take these votes back. You want to go gentleman's agreement and say 3-0 and 3-0? Or do you want me to do this again, Mark?
Yeah,
Gentle
It's
lady.
two,
prerogative
It's
of
2-0.
the chair.
So
it's
Prerogative of the
2-0.
chair. 2-0?
It's
2-0.
myself and Tim.
I can
and
also vote.
Clayton. Okay, then you would be a third.
So I'm gonna take the lump there. My last name is spelled Cargill, and then if you put that in the paper, that was my fault. So that's okay. So those are 3-0, 3-0 on those votes. And now I think I'm done for a couple of minutes here because it's the superintendent report coming next. And Mark, I understand you have some news for us.
No, not really. It's been kind of quiet. No, so I did submit a written report. There's basically everything I wrote in number 3 under COVID mitigation doesn't apply anymore as of Monday of next week, March 7th. I've lifted the indoor mask requirement at the schools. I was expecting the agency to lift their recommendation for indoor masking. I thought they were going to do it today or effective on Monday. They said March 14th because they wanted the schools to have enough time to prepare for the transition. We've been working on this since February 16th, which was the last date that I sent out a newsletter on COVID-19 just a couple days before vacation, and I've been communicating with the staff at the schools. And so it's like dragging this out one more week didn't seem to make sense. So effective Monday, the indoor mask requirement has been lifted. I'd really like it on the record here in the board meeting that the administration is really interested in and hoping that we're going to have civil behavior about this between maskers and non-maskers. I think we'll have staff that might decide to take off their masks, staff that will decide to continue to wear them. A lot of kids probably will take their masks off. Some kids will continue to wear them. The administration, the principals will be, focused on dealing with conflict between kids. We're hoping we're not going to see incidents of teasing or, kids yelling, "Why are you still wearing your mask?" or why aren't you wearing a mask? So that can go in either direction. So we've been trying to prepare people for that and had sent some messages out just to teachers to get them thinking about that a couple of weeks ago. And we'll see how it goes. The health department says the conditions, basically what they did was disconnect the mask requirement from the vaccination levels. And so that's why we're lifting it. So starting on Monday, no more indoor mask requirement, and that extends to the buses as well. Let's see, anything else on here? In number 5, Act 173 and pupil waiting, I'd said at the time that I wrote this that I couldn't get a read on what the legislature is going to do regarding the possible delay of Act 173. Act 173 is a piece of legislation that was passed a couple of years ago that said that Vermont was going to shift from a reimbursement model for services for special education to a block grant model. There was some discussion, it's supposed to go into effect on July 1st of this year. There had been some discussion in the legislature about delaying the enactment, pushing out the date beyond July 1st. The last thing, and I just heard this afternoon in a meeting that it looks like they're going to go ahead with implementation on July 1st, but there are some other things that were happening coincidentally around rule changes in special education and eligibility rules that right now the legislature is considering delaying the implementation of the rule changes for another year. And the rationale behind that is that the rule changes as they were drafted are going to actually increase our special ed case count at the same time that the state had cut back on the money that they're providing us to pay for special education. So that hasn't been enacted yet, but that seems to be the direction that they're going. The other thing in here is the pupil waiting. study, and that's a study that was completed 2 years ago. It was actually outgrowth of the Act 173 legislation. The legislature hired a researcher from University of Vermont to look at the people waiting is the method in the current ed finance program. I'm going to talk about this in a little more detail for Melissa and Molly's benefit. It's a mechanism that's part of the education funding formula that says that certain students cost more money to educate. So in terms of determining how much money will be given to a school to educate certain students, instead of counting them as a single student, additional weights are applied. The old weighting model that has been in existence for 25 years now was just very rough, and it just gave an slightly additional weight to high school students and counted pre-K students at a much lower rate, and that was about it. There's more science involved in the study on the pupil weighting, and there will be adjustments made for factors around things like around special education, around poverty, around rurality, and the challenges of operating schools in a rural environment. Those things are factors that will help the schools in CCSU because all of our schools are considered rural schools. There was there was a directive out of the legislature last session to form a study committee to make recommendations for implementing the weighting study. And they spent a whole summer talking about all kinds of things except let's implement the weighting recommendations. And now it looks like that's what's going to happen moving forward. The legislation has kind of got some momentum behind it, and it looks like they will be implementing the recommendations in the weighting study pretty much as they were presented to take effect, I believe, in FY24, which is not the current budget year that we just voted on, but the year coming up. So I'll be reporting on that as the legislative session continues and finishes up. And I guess that's all my additional comments. Everything else is in the written report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
So I would just say, before we go, thank you for your action today. There's so much mask fatigue, and there's so many people that have been so worried about getting these masks off of their kids, and we finally are going to be able to on Monday. And I think it's really appreciated in the community. So thank you.
Okay. So
Does anybody else have anything to
questions
If nobody does, we're going to go to the principal's report, which was short and lovely. Dave, Mark, or Sarah, who's going? Dave, looks like they both having dinner. Dave or Sarah?
First of all, sorry we shared it so late. Like Dave said in the email, it's been a busy couple of days back. So
Leave it.
Dave shared the screen in case you haven't had a chance to look at it. We put some awesome pictures up on Facebook, but the elementary and middle school did a PBIS celebration with sugar and snow, and thank you to Clayton and Molly and Melissa for helping the staff and serving. Thanks to Jen Crocker and Molly for donating syrup, and then Linda Vance made her delicious donut holes that she makes and sells, and we got to enjoy those as well. So that was the Wednesday right before February break, and it was a great, beautiful winter day that just was a lot of fun for the kids. So yeah, I don't know that I have much else for elementary. The rest of it is more Dave for high school and middle school.
Yeah, Winter Carnival was good to have back. It's been a long time. It's something that the kids really appreciated. They appreciated having fun and just jumping back into things. Can't tell you who won yet because we don't know. Judging continues. Nick DeCaro. Every time Winter Carnival happens, the student council advisor takes on about 3 or 4 full-time jobs in a week. So Nick DeCaro is no exception to that, while not only doing that, but coaching varsity girls basketball. So Nick is finishing up some of the judging pieces, and we'll know which class won later. Speaking of varsity girls basketball, they had a great season, made it to the odd for the first time in years, and they really brought basketball back. If you remember last year, they had an absolutely disappointing end of their season due to COVID, and it was good to see them back, even though the outcome at the odd wasn't what we wanted to see. Their season was great. Varsity boys playing at BMU on Saturday, hoping to get them to the odd as well. And then in our report, we started to write about some tension in the community regarding the COVID guidance, and halfway through writing this, Mark fixed that. So I want to echo thanks to Mark for, I know, the message all along has been that we're following what the state tells us to do. And I think at this point, I want to really thank Mark for just making a common sense decision that it was time to make our own decision in the best interest of kids. So thanks for that.
Yeah, I want to echo that. And I've already heard from a couple of parents that are grateful that that change is happening. So thank you.
Excellent. Does anybody have any questions for Sarah or for Dave? If not, the next thing on the agenda is student service report, but we don't have one. So we'll probably get one of those next month.
You didn't have one in the packet?
There's not
You
one in the
should've.
back.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
in the packet.
It
I thought
was?
in the packet.
Oh,
Maybe I'm
It's in
confused.
it's in the packet that was sent today, right? With
Yeah,
it has
the one that
survey.
came out today.
oh
Okay.
boy. All right, I'm gonna tell you that this is something I'm working on. It's actually was one of my goals for my evaluation is to fix this communicate. It's not timely enough. And you shouldn't be getting, like 3 versions of packets. That's very confusing for the board. So I'm gonna own some responsibility for that, and I am working on it.
It's in one of, it's in one, I have 2 copies of the same packet in the same email, and it's in the second one, not the first one. So I didn't get a chance to look at this, and that's my fault. And I'm
Okay.
sorry about that. Does anybody have any questions for Mark? Mark, if you did go through this questionnaire and the student services packet, and you have any questions for Mark, then feel free to ask them now. And I'm going to read through this, and I'll get back to you, Mark.
Okay. The other thing is I've asked, just for information purposes, I've asked Sabrina to put together a presentation on upcoming changes of special ed regulations. And she's going to be touring around through the district board meetings to present that. So I'll try to get that on the agenda for April to come in and present to the board so you know what's going on with that.
That would be great. All right. So does anybody have any questions about that besides me, who has to read it? If not, we're going to move on to the student representative reports. And I see we have Thomas and Ava here, and I don't know who's going first. And I haven't seen your presentations. Thomas, you're going to go first, or is Ava going to go first?
Hi, Thomas, do you want to go first?
I don't know. You could.
Okay, I didn't really have anything this month. And also my apologies, I didn't realize that there was a normal meeting today, till I got the Zoom link today. But I did just want to say it's great to see 2 strong female faces on the school board now.
Here, here. Yeah, excellent. Thank you. And Thomas, do you have anything for us?
Yeah, it's been pretty quiet. I mean, we just had break. Not much going on.
All right, good. So as we go, get us some news. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
All right, that finishes up our administrative reports. And next up is we have discussion. And the first part of our discussion is it's a holdover from the last agenda. It was a question regarding the resignation of the Danville High School principal, but probably this is more of a clarification. In reviewing Dave's original contract and then his subsequent the 3-year contract he was given, his 3-year contract had an option at the end of the second year, in the middle of the second year, to figure out if you want to take the 3rd year. In declining that option, he did not resign. He simply left his contract as a 2-year contract. And so our current search for a new principal is based on the job opening that is created by Dave finishing out his contract and having told us in January that he was not renewing his contract. So I think this one is moot. And I think that we're going to leave it there. Does that sound right, Mark?
It does to me.
Okay. Does that sound right, Dave?
Me, Dave?
Dave Schilling, please. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. That is my understanding. And can I get a consensus of the board that makes sense? I don't need a motion or anything on that one. The next item we have on the agenda for discussion is the principal new hire recommendation by superintendent, but this is tentative. Mark, do you think you're ready to give us an update on the process?
Yeah, I can update you on it. We are close to making a decision, but not quite there. I put this on the agenda in case this had fallen in place in time to act on it tonight. We're not quite there. Waiting for some additional feedback from an interview that a candidate had today. We're waiting for feedback from students, the high school students. I'm hoping to make a decision and have a recommendation. And if when I get to that point, what I would like to do is have a special board meeting to act on that recommendation so we can lock that up. So have not formally made the decision. I'm not making a recommendation tonight, but I would like to ask the board to give some consideration to their availability for a special meeting next week, which would be pretty quick.
Do you have any days that you want to have them give special consideration to? Are you still Wednesdays and Thursdays are the days they should be considering?
Well, let me look because the schedule got messed around because we're doing some meetings early. So let me just peek real quick here. Today is we could, well,
So this is still.
I guess I'd like to say, just for planning purposes, because to make sure we have enough time to resolve, could we get together on Wednesday, the 9th or Thursday, the 10th? Do either of those days work as a tentative date for a special meeting?
They're both okay with me.
Either one's fine for me.
Still,
Thursday works for me.
Still 6
Thursday.
o'clock.
Yeah, Thursday works better for me.
Thursday works better for
Okay.
Molly.
Yep.
All right,
Thursday.
so then I would just ask you to pencil that in as a potential. I don't think, the other thing I would ask is just if we were ready to act on this as soon as next Monday, would that work?
I can go Monday too.
Yeah.
Can we get duly warned by Monday, Mark?
If I warn it tomorrow. That's still pushing it a little bit, but I just want to keep some options open. Obviously, this time of year, with a viable candidate, we want to lock things up, but so just pencil in Monday or Thursday. I will let you know. If it's going to be on Monday, you'll know about that tomorrow. If it's going to be Thursday, we'll warn it next week. The rule on special meetings, Molly and Melissa, is that they have to be warned 24 hours in advance.
Business hours like that, business hours.
Yeah. Basically, a day before the meeting.
Okay.
So if we're going to have a meeting on Thursday, we'd have to warn it by Wednesday because we meet in the evening. If we're going to have it on Monday, we'd have to warn it before the end of the day tomorrow. Okay. So that's that.
That's where we are. Okay. Our next item on the agenda is outdoor program structures. And now we come to the weird word. Dave Schilling's going to say yurt.
That is true.
Ready for it, Dave?
I'm going to say yurt several times. Before we get to that, I have a quick question. Sometimes we ask for new agenda items before the meeting, and I might have been late for that, which is fine. We have a quick facilities one too, but which we could do next week. It will take about 10 seconds, but based on wanting to warn it, maybe it's best to wait till next week and warn it.
This is the old rule that you can't add, and we learned this rule from Thomas Edgar's father, Robert Edgar. You can't add. This is why I was hastening at the beginning of the meeting to get my agenda additions into the agenda. Once your meeting is started, you can't then continue tacking things on in the middle.
Great. So we will talk about.
And I only know this because I sat next to Robert for 3 years and I enjoyed every minute of it. But and I'm going to miss him for this, but we can't add agenda items starting now.
Got it. So we will talk about that part next week. It's simple and not a big deal. So to talk about a yurt for a second, we have been, when I proposed that we add to our high school programming, of course, I proposed that we add to a program without a space to put it in because we are out of space, as we well know. So we've been thinking about where we can put certain parts of our experiential learning program, as well as have a facility that could function for multiple groups. And rather than start thinking about temporary structures that are more traditional, one option that came up was the idea of building a yurt out in the field area where the wind turbine formerly stood. The cool thing about yurts is they're as permanent of a temporary structure as you can get. They're about 25-year structures, and they're extremely durable. I lived in one for an Idaho winter in the Tetons, and it was a great home to live in. You can see over here what it is. I'm going to scroll down through the what's a yurt piece because I figure you can check that out on your own. But basically, our goals here are creating a relatively affordable satellite space, year-round accessibility. This is the quotes that I got included insulation. Gathering space for outdoor learning. We're trying to really bolster our outdoor learning on campus. Could be a home base for that outdoor programming, including the fact that if you've ever walked down our high school hallway, you see that it's full of cross-country skis right now. So the ski program could live out by the ski trails. And flexible use for multiple groups. An elementary classroom, for example, could sign it out when it's not being used for something else and have an open space. The one in the picture is decorated and furnished with more traditional classroom furniture. I don't think we'd go there. I think we'd be more flexible, but that's an idea of what it could be used for. Benefits I talked about, that it's durable, it's easy to construct, insulate, and heat. If our site plan changes, which as we continue to hear from our architects, it most likely will, it's easy to relocate. And it's much more suitable than like a temporary trailer or some other form of classroom classroom addition. The site would be here where the wind turbine used to stand. It's already got conduit run from the sugar house for power, so it would be easy to get power to it. Close to where it needs to be. Space isn't used for anything else right now, and it's reasonably close to the building. I did include some links in the report I sent you last night to check out, both about different schools that have used them or Thetford Academy, just how they've done it. So there's some different educational program links there. And then I received 2 quotes for what this could look like. The quotes include the everything about the structure and shipping the structure. They don't include building a simple wooden deck underneath to where for it that it sits on. I see a question in the chat about accessibility. So accessibility would depend on just how that deck is formed. So yeah, the deck would be easy to make accessible. It's a wooden deck. Colorado Yurt Company quoted us $26,730, including shipping, and Pacific quoted us $20,000 with $4,000 shipping, so $24,000. Given these 2 structures, the Colorado Yurt Company structure to me is more suitable for our climate. Their snow and wind package is superior to Pacific's. Pacific uses a cable that kind of comes down through the middle to hold it together. Colorado uses a much more robust frame structure that doesn't require that. So my recommendation would be that we would go with Colorado as spec'd out. You've got still sizable unrestricted surplus funds. My recommendation would be that we fund this. Well, actually, my recommendation, as I wrote to you last night, is that we consider funding it from unrestricted surplus, but also that I work with Mike Conchesi to see if some endowment funds might be better to offset that. And that should you go with this, Clayton's waving something off. Oh, that's his phone.
My phone keeps ringing. My wife's still on call. CG.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Sorry.
But that we use some mix of surplus funds and endowment funds as Mike sees fit and sees to be the most financially viable option. Either way, we have the money. So this would be a start. I think that we see how this works with one, and it could be an option for a couple more if it works, and if it fits our needs while we're continuing to figure out where we can put people as we both increase outdoor programming and look toward a building renovation. There was one comment in the chat. I'm not sure that participants in the meeting can see the chat. I know that panelists well can. Anyway, Rob Balavet comments that he thinks it's an excellent idea. So with that, I leave you to questions.
Does anybody on the board have any questions for Dave about this yurt?
This is Dave. What's the cost of the deck with being handicap accessible?
The accessibility piece, Dave, is just building a ramp as opposed to stairs. So either way, you're talking about a few $1,000s for essentially a typical wooden deck. That's because the structure sits. If you look here, the structure sits covering the deck. The deck is solely support. It's not, other than the, in this particular case, they use stairs. You would build that out to a ramp. So the deck itself does not have to be pressure treated or weather resistant because the yurt covers it. That keeps costs down.
And could those ramp be
Thank
built
you.
by a local contractor?
Say that again, Clayton?
A ramp could be built by a local contractor?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the deck and the ramp are simple stuff. It could be built by a school building trades class.
All right, Tim?
So you talked about the insulation that's provided for the yurt in its own design. Is there any specific insulation that needs to be considered for the deck?
Yeah, the yurt design is, they use Reflectix. It's a like a Mylar encapsulated sort of essentially bubble wrap. What people usually use for the deck is just simple like green foam board underneath.
Molly Gleason.
I was just wondering, would this be available for community groups? I was thinking about our Girl Scout troop, and we often go snowshoeing on the trails at the school. So is that something would that be a usable space for a group like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Where I've seen different groups use it in a different setting is at Smuggler's Notch Resort. They have two of them. They use one of them that's out by they actually operate one as a teen center, and then in the afternoons, different Nordic programs and races use it as a base of operations. So absolutely for community groups.
Great.
Excellent. And so Dave, what you're looking for here is you're looking for a motion, and you're looking specifically for a motion for not to exceed how many dollars?
I'm going to say not to exceed 30,000 for right now, and then I will come back to
So what Dave's looking for is he's looking for a motion to spend either budget surplus funds or endowment fund for the purchase of a yurt not to exceed $30,000. So
I'd like to make a motion.
Dave Toll makes the motion. Thank you, Dave.
Yes.
Can I get a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion about this, or did anybody from the community have anything in the chat again? I can't.
Quick question. What do you need for restroom facilities close by, or
the school. You'd use the school for that.
you're going into the school?
Correct.
That's sufficient? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think for now, it's really, I think that's the first round, and then we'll go from there. But it's it's no farther than the Sugar House, so it's a pretty.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Molly, there's something else?
Yeah, I had one more question. Did you talk about heat, Dave? I may have missed that. A heating unit inside.
Yeah, so I would probably come back to you with, if we can't cover that out of our facilities budget, I'd come back to you again. What most people use is a Renai propane heater, a direct vent, which would probably be the easiest way to go with this.
I know there's one up at Riverside. I know the teacher who works in a yurt up at Riverside. I think she did say she has like a propane heater that she could send pictures of if you wanted to see what they use up there.
Yeah, the one I lived in Idaho was the Renai energy saver version. I'd love to see that picture too. And it was because it's direct vent, it's only like about a 1.5 inch protrusion through the yurt, and it worked great. So, but I'd love to see that if you could send it my way.
Okay, this sounds
Thank you.
great to me. I've got a motion. I've got a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor of spending not up to $30,000 on this yurt from either way we can fund it, as previously mentioned, say aye.
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 Got four yeses. I'll also say yes. That 5 motion carries. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is replacement of main hallway lift. Dave, that's the one right across from your office?
Oh, sweet. That is on the, never mind. That there was my my thing that I thought we needed to talk about next
Yeah,
week.
we made sure that got onto this agenda.
All right.
Hey, Dave, I got your back, buddy.
Now,
I
when
put
you
that
say-
on there.
I didn't know
Yes,
that was on the agenda.
yes, that's the one.
So
Okay.
just to clarify, Dave, you don't mean the elevator which has been repaired. You mean the
No.
main hallway lift that goes from the cafeteria walkway up to the high school hallway, correct?
High school, middle school.
The
Correct.
big red button that falls off all the time?
Yeah,
Yes.
that one.
That one, okay.
That one, I think.
So,
Gotta fix a button.
Yeah, it doesn't fall off anymore.
That,
Yeah, the button's fixed.
I've knocked it off. So, who's in charge of telling us about this replacement? Dave
Sure.
again, or Sarah?
I'm happy to, unless Sarah, you want to.
Please, Dave,
All right.
please.
So that lift is out of ADA compliance, but more importantly, a student who would be transitioning to the middle school next year has a chair that is physically impossible to fit in that lift. So both for ADA purposes and student accessibility purposes, that lift has to be replaced. Sean has had some contractors out looking at it. The good news is that we don't have to significantly modify the building to replace the lift. So it could fit into the space of the current lift. The difference would be that the lift ramp would extend out into the space where currently there's no ramp, so that somebody could transfer on and then be elevated.
But you don't have to
Cost
agree to that,
of,
none of that concrete?
what's that? You don't have to do any concrete work. Nope. The cost of the lift is about $19,500 to replace. We had put aside $60,000 at the beginning of this year for potential emergency air handler replacement that has not needed to happen yet, or repairs. You know, when we put those, we know we have those air handlers on the top of the building that are at the end of their life. The board put aside $60,000. We're now into March and those air handlers have upheld. So I recommend that we transfer up to $20,000 from that fund to replace the lift and not have to incur any additional expenses.
I concur.
Excellent. Okay, that sounds like a good plan. I don't think it doesn't, and it doesn't sound like we have a choice. It sounds like we won't be able to educate one of our students if we don't do this.
Correct.
So,
Mike Conchesi has looked into special ed streams. It doesn't apply to that because it's a modification to a building system essentially, but we have looked at other specific funding sources, and bottom line, we do have a kid who's going to need accessibility.
okay. Do I have any questions from the board about this?
What is the width of the lift going to be, the inside footprint?
I don't have an exact measurement for you, but
So
what
it-
ADA requires is what it is. I know that much.
Yeah, so the width doesn't have to change. It currently fits and it meets ADA. It's the depth of it, front to back, that doesn't meet current ADA compliancy. So
Thank you.
that's
Yeah,
the-
because you probably have to have enough room to drive in a scooter if you had to. I mean, I don't know anything about the person that needs it, but it does have to have a longer, well, they call like a footprint.
yeah,
Correct.
yeah. So that's what's got to change. Yep.
Okay,
Okay.
so all you lose is just a little bit of stairway railing. You move it, you get a wider stairway railing for safety, and then that you don't lose any.
No, you don't lose anything because the depth of it is in the enclosure space that it already lives in.
Yeah, we were concerned we'd have to alter the actual wall, and we do not have to do that, which is wonderful. So
And how many
And not-
dollars? 20,000?
Correct.
Melissa?
And so not knowing anything about the lift, but my assumption is that this would fit sort of like if a bigger wheelchair down the road was needed to act, like this is going to be able to accommodate that moving forward too. Awesome.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, so what I'm looking for now is a motion to approve the repair and the replacement of the main hallway lift. And the price is $20,000. Can I get that motion?
I'll make the motion. No, I'm sorry. I'll retract it.
All
Go
right, so I'm gonna take Melissa Conley's motion, but I am looking for a second. and I saw some fingers.
I'll second it.
Oh. They're facing you out, Dave. I'm gonna take Molly Gleason's second. Okay. I have a motion. I have a second. Is there any additional discussion about replacing this lift? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of replacing this lift at a cost not to exceed $20,000, say aye.
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 I'll vote for that as well. I think that's very important. Excellent. Okay, so now that puts us at the end of our board business. We had there was some stuff that I was going to add at the end about future business, but that's all I had. So we're to the public input section. And like you say, we're in a new webinar format. I don't know how to work it.
Yeah,
can
Dave's
take
gonna
over,
walk
I
us
think.
through this.
Okay,
Yep.
so
Yep.
I'm going to
So-
turn it over to Dave to tell us who's going to talk.
But
Give it back to me before they talk.
great. So if folks are in the attendee section, you'll see that you have a raise hand button down there. I see one participant, Allison Despathy, has already indicated a raised hand. So if you would like to speak in public comment, just go ahead and raise your hand. What will happen is I will click on a link that allows you to talk. At that point, you will have access to unmute yourself and speak in the meeting. We're going to hope this works out well. So we'll go from there. There is a public comment in the chat. Rob Balavet, I have really enjoyed working with David on master plan. Thank you, Rob. I assume you might meet David Toll. Thank you to David Toll as well. Both Davids, here we go. Thanks, Rob. I think, Rob, you've been a phenomenal asset to this, and we are looking forward to your continued participation. So with that in mind, I see one raised hand right now in public comment, which is Allison Despathy. So I am going to click on the button that I hope will allow this to work. And Clayton, go ahead.
We're going to go, if you can come back to me for just a second, Dave.
Sure can.
We're going to allow 3 minutes per person for public comment, and I'm holding the clock. So our first comment is Allison Despathy. Allison, welcome.
Allison, you should be able to unmute at this point.
I did. Yes. Is that working okay?
Sure
We can
is.
hear you.
Okay, great. Okay. So thank you all. I just wanted to check in on two things. Obviously, you can all imagine I'm really excited to see Mark Tucker's email come in about students having the option for masks and parents being involved in the choice. And my main comment is thank you. I'm very happy to see that. Of course, I know you guys all know that. But just moving forward, I just want to make sure that everyone knows right now there is zero scientific evidence regarding efficacy of masks. That's from the Bangladesh study, the New York study, and there's plenty of evidence showing the harms of masks. And I just want to make sure that moving forward, that that's something that will be taken into account as you all make decisions depending on how things go. So that was the first piece. The second ones, I'm not quite sure who to direct this to, and this may not be, if someone could just let me know who to ask this question. I'm just curious how much time students are spending on computers. And I don't know if that's information that's being gathered. I'm sure there's a wide variance in it, but I just was curious who I should direct that question to, if someone has an answer at some point. And then my other one is, I do not have access to Zoom. I am at a friend's place right now, so I can do Zoom. I know that the numbers are down. There's not a state of emergency. And I'm wondering when you guys will be getting in, as many other schools are, to in-person meetings so that I could adequately attend and not be held back by the fact that I don't have a Zoom option.
Okay, Mark and I discussed that particular aspect, and as we have been, we're waiting for guidance on that. We're locked down on the meeting part. When they tell us, when it comes down from AOE that we should have in-person meetings, there'll still be a Zoom component. And when that happens, you'll get another email from Mark saying public meetings are now available in the schools, and that's when you'll know. Well, we don't know yet, so we haven't heard.
Okay, it seemed like other schools were already doing that, so I didn't know if that was a in-house board decision or you actually needed to wait for AOE.
We were mandated to go to our, I think it was a policy, and they told us to no longer have in-person meetings until their say so. Is that correct, Mark?
Okay.
Yeah, I expect that's one of the things downstream that's going to change too. It's everybody wants to know when something's going to change, and just like everything else is it's going to be driven by the conditions. And I would like to bask in the aura of having lifted the mask requirement for a couple of days before we start worrying about going back to public meetings. But
Right, and
that'll
I
come.
just, okay.
That'll come, Allison. I don't look to
know.
what goes on in other supervisory unions for the guidance on what we do.
I understand that. And I just, in order to
Okay.
access it, it's very difficult for me. So I just wanted to make sure
Yep.
that was going to be happening. And then,
It will at some point. Yeah.
okay, thank you. And the other thing I just wanted to confirm for sure that if there is a way that as you guys move forward regarding masks, which are health choices for children, that the parents can be the ones able to make that. And my last thing, because I know my time is out. So thank you, Clayton, for the little bit of extra time with the responses.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yep, and this is my last thing. I just wanted to say also, Dave, I lived in a yurt in Lake Tahoe, and it was phenomenal, and it was awesome, and it was totally winterized, and it worked out really well. And I think that's very exciting to hear. And thank you guys all very much.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Dave. Is there additional public comment?
I am not seeing any other hands raised in the chat or in the public comment. I'm looking at the chat too to see if anybody's put anything in the chat. There is nothing else in the chat. So one more time, folks, it's when I have the experience of having been a participant when I first signed into the meeting and getting, put in that room, and there are literally only like 3 buttons at the bottom. There's raise hand, Q&A, and chat. So I think that last call for anybody to click on the raise hand button if you would like to speak in public comment.
Okay.
None.
None. Okay, so thank you all for coming, and I'm sure that based on the names that I see, a lot of you are also very relieved, like we are, that we can get these masks off these kids as we prefer, if we prefer. And I know that the administrators are, and thank you for your patience with that. And there we go. Now I'm going to go on to the next item on the agenda, which is additions to not future agenda items. And so for future agenda items, Dave, did you have one? Dave Schilling?
No,
Well,
we covered it. Oh, sorry.
I'm pretty sure we need to put the building plans and numbers and bond vote and however we want to phrase that. We had talked about last month about that would be a big focus for April.
okay, building
Yeah.
plans.
Yeah, building,
Yeah, just an
whatever.
update on where we are with the work of the architects.
Which are
Yeah.
building plans, architecture, Truex
Yeah.
Collins, okay?
And we would probably have Truex Collins. I think we need to reach out to them, but we would hope to have them there too.
Okay.
Yeah.
A
And-
couple things. Mark, did you have something?
Clayton, I'd mentioned earlier that I'm going to ask Sabrina to come in April, unless you want it.
Excellent.
Okay.
Sabrina Brown, Special Services, okay. I wanted to talk about, at the last CCSU meeting that we went to, we spoke, there was a recommendation of a policy that was not sent down by the CCSU board, and it was VSBA code A31, and it was about board education. And seeing as how we have 2 new members and I'm sitting in a different seat now, I thought that we might discuss with Mark some board education. I know there are some upcoming webinars from VSBA for new members that'll be very beneficial, and he may get with you on those. And VSBA may get with you on that school email to have some of those, but I'd like to discuss that briefly. And secondarily, I'd like to have sent around by Mark, if possible, in advance of next month's meeting. There was a webinar in November about public comments and how to handle public comments, which I think was important, probably less important now than it was 3 hours ago. But at the same time, there was a very, very informative webinar about public comments and how they're handled and who can comment in public that I'm hoping everybody will watch, and then we can subsequently discuss so that we can put something in our comments so that when I'm telling somebody 3 minutes, I'm telling them, and it's not a rule I made up on this day, so we can adjust our agenda. So I'd like to, I'm asking everybody to watch the webinar, and then we'll get back. Dave Toll? Yes, sir.
Can we put a link to that webinar on our site?
On our school board site?
Yeah.
We can, but as of this exact moment, we don't have a school board site. We have a retired school board site, and we're working on them. So we got to get these minutes up in the next 2 days, and we have to figure out where we're going to put things. But yes, when we get it up there, we'll link up to this particular webinar. It was
Well, Clayton, it is possible to embed a link in the minutes that if somebody is looking at the minutes electronically, they could click on the link. It doesn't work if somebody's reading a printed copy of the minutes, but if somebody's reading an electronic copy of the minutes, the links can be live in there, so we can put it in the minutes.
So we put it in this minutes or the next minutes, because we're only discussing
We'll
adding.
put it in, well, you tell me.
Okay, so we put it in
Why
this
not
minute. I mentioned it. Tim?
Why not both?
Okay, deal.
Put it these minutes in the agenda.
Yeah, it's
So-
being referenced now, so I think these minutes would be good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be great. I don't mean to give you a homework assignment to the 2 veterans who've been on this board for years and years longer than me, but I went to it and it helped. And so I think we should all watch it and talk about it. And that is the
All
end
right,
of
so just so I'm clear, where do you want this posted now? In the minutes for this meeting or the next agenda?
I gotta learn how to make hot
Both.
links. I'm doing the minutes for this meeting, probably both. It'll be on the
I think
agenda for
both.
next meeting. It'll be in the agenda for next meeting.
Okay.
Clayton, can I ask a question?
Please.
So one of the things that Dave and I talked about today, as we try to squeeze some time for our board report, We want to make sure that what we are reporting out to all of you monthly is stuff that you want to know. And I know since I've been attending, we haven't actually like asked, what specific things are you looking for? Because you all know that we put a lot of it on our Facebook page. Pretty much everything that we mentioned today is also on our Facebook page. And we don't mind talking about that again, but we want to make sure that we're addressing what you want to hear. So
I know this came up before, this came up last year and Tim had some ideas and I'm gonna go to Tim first.
wonderful.
Well, I do appreciate what's listed, even though I do also see it on the Facebook page. I think for people who don't necessarily follow Facebook, but might read the reports, I think that's really helpful. I think if we're getting them earlier, right now, we're really in the habit right now of like, we're going to get it a little later and then we're going to read the whole report together. And I think that part can sort of shift away. And then, if ever you're sort of like this feels a little light this month, I would love, we're just going to pick a class and talk and maybe have the teacher write the blurb. Here's something exciting that happened, or get a student blurb. Here's something that exciting that happened in my life. I think as somebody who doesn't have students in the school, I appreciate the window into the building. And so I think wherever you want to direct that lens is great, and I think it's fine to reiterate things that have been said throughout the month on your Facebook page already for people who aren't necessarily seeing that. But I think what you've been doing is also great. So
Thank you, Tim. I think that I would say that regarding the reports, since you do so much communicating with the public already, those things can just be linked to as part of your reports, and you could build a report all the way through the month, so that if you did something on the third Thursday, then you already have your report started with what you communicated. And we did discuss having Mr. White's in about his class. And so that would be probably one of the first ones. If we're gonna have Sabrina Brown next month, maybe in May, we could have Mr. White talk about his project-based class as one of the things that a presentation, but not next month if we're having a special services report.
Yeah, I think Mason's good. And I've asked students also to be a part. I think I've already briefed students that should come from them.
But I think that all of the things that you talk about, generally, you do talk about, and then you hasten to write a separate report. And you may not need to write a separate report. You may simply need to accumulate what you've done, and that can be your report.
Perfect.
And failing that, corner a kid and make a kid write something.
That is helpful for me, because sometimes it feels like that.
Okay. And with that, we're at the end of the meeting, and we can leave if somebody says,
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Tim Sanborn makes a motion to adjourn. Can I get a second on that?
I'll second that.
Excellent. Okay. And can we vote on a motion to adjourn, please? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thanks to the public for putting up with me there. I'm going to work on that. All right. Good night, everybody. Even the reporter left. The guy just left.